Hilary, thanks so much for joining me today. This is a fun moment. I think we met in a past life, 10 plus years ago, re-get connected now and what you guys have built from those early days. Really excited. But as we evolve into that story, if you would please tell our audience your name and a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Hilary Cinque. I am the co-founder and creative director of the Lumen Room, and I transferred to SMU in 2011 and graduated in 2013.
Awesome. Yeah, we were talking a little bit about how this will flow, and the origin story is kind of where we go. So you have a good one, and one I think that's important to share of those who maybe don't start at SMU but finish there, right? And so you're from Dallas, went to high school here, but you ultimately chose to go to University of South Carolina for the first part of your college experience. Tell us a little about you in high school. What were you looking for in a university? I understand being from here, maybe SMU isn't the first thing you want to do. You want to get away from home, but what was 18-year-old Hilary looking for in a college and kind of where she wanted to go professionally?
Yeah, I was obsessed with anything creative. I was always in our high school art department, painting, drawing, photography. I knew I wanted to go to a school where I could get a degree in fine art. And other than that, I really wasn't sure. I toured all these schools. I ended up at Carolina, I think, because I saw the football stadium and was like, this is awesome. The huge school SEC experience was kind of what drew me there. But after a couple years, I decided the art department just wasn't exactly what I wanted and probably needed for my career. And I just knew Meadows was amazing. I grew up in Dallas. I knew all about it. I knew that it was a place where you could push yourself and grow and make connections, and that it was just a really respected art program. And so it was scary, but I transferred, halfway through college, and I'm really glad that I did.
Yeah, us too. I imagine it's especially when you put 2 years in, your credits, everything. It's a big decision to leave your friends, the community you're building. But you ultimately made that decision for your future and your career. So tell me a little bit about how are you thinking about a career in that major of fine arts and being someone who's creative? Like, how did that evolve from in high school, or maybe you're like, I know I want to be an artist, or I want to be behind the lens, to what you learned in school to what those possibilities might be?
Yeah, I think in high school, I was certain I wanted to be a creative director. I was like, that is the way that you have a position of leadership in art. You make money. That's how you make money in art. And I kind of thought that that was really the only option, that if you were more of a traditional artist or a designer even, that you couldn't really achieve some level of success. I would say that I've seen that that's not necessarily true, but yeah, 18-year-old me was like, I'm going to go somewhere. I'm going to be a creative director. I'm going to learn all the things. And yeah.
And for someone naive like myself, a creative director, does that apply across kind of any genre of art, or is it like a specific, what is the role, or how should I think what a creative director does? I mean, it's still, you didn't fall far from that. You ended up, you're doing that in your day-to-day now.
I am doing it. Yeah.
But tell us, those folks who aren't into that world, what the role of a creative director is.
So a creative director would be kind of the person that is overall in charge of, say, your brand or your business's aesthetics, anything creative. So they're kind of leading the charge in terms of working with the people who are doing your graphic design, the people who are doing your branding, the messages that you're sending, making sure that creatively it all falls in line, works with the brand, and is really successful.
Wow. So what did Meadows teach you that then allowed that skill set? That seems like it's business components, it's the intangibles of a business or of a feel that you get. What did Meadows teach you, and that give you the confidence to then, early on kind of begin building that life for yourself?
Yeah, I think, the most obvious part is that you learn tons about light and color and composition and all things creative. You as a studio art major, you have to kind of try your hand at everything. You have to do painting,
Right.
drawing, 3D, all of it. So you're prepared to be a director in that space because
Mhm.
you've tried it all and you understand a little bit about everything. But I would say the biggest thing about SMU that was so beneficial is that they really taught you how to work with other creatives. You know, what does it
Ooh,
look like to glean information from someone? How do you be a mentee? How do you be a mentor? How do you respect somebody else's creative process? How do you communicate what you need from somebody who's doing
wow.
their own creative process? That's kind of the biggest thing I would say.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something to me that would be completely overlooked, and how you have these people coming from you as the creative director is trying to make it all work together, but you have people working in silos, and how do you, be that leader that makes that happen? So you transfer to SMU. Sounds like you have an incredible experience. You learn a lot. It was the right decision. What did the job prospects look like graduating for you to continue what you studied and build a career for yourself after school?
I am not even sure because I started working in college. I did tons of photo shoots for headshots, weddings, just kind of
Mhm.
anything. And so I never really applied for jobs. I just started taking clients and then
Yeah.
slowly found my way to my niche.
So what's a route there? Like, how are you? Is it really like one road or the other? Is there a formal? I worked for a big corporation with this degree and kind of work my way up to a creative director. Is that one route, or is it also like, hey, I'm just got to be scrappy here and kind of build my own destiny? Or is it a little bit of everything of what you want to make it coming out of Meadows with creative architecture?
I mean, I think there are multiple avenues. Mine was to kind of go my own way. Still to this day, I've always just worked for myself.
Yep.
I lead our brand, but I have seen people that go out on their own and do really good creative work, make good connections, and are able to get really great jobs in creative direction just from proving that they can do
Right.
it rather than having to, start in one area and kind of slowly build up the ladder.
Now you mentioned kind of being an entrepreneur ever since being in school. Is that something that as a young person you were always kind of interested in business or being an entrepreneur, or kind of how did you blend those two worlds?
No, if anything, I regret my dad always told me, "You need to take some classes in finance because no matter what you do, it's gonna be so helpful, even if you do your own
Yeah.
thing, even if you're an artist." And I said, "I don't wanna do that." Um, I should have listened. But no, I never set out to be an entrepreneur. I never even really, um, had this genius business idea that I went and launched.
Right.
I just found myself in a space that was really a need, and reacted to that.
That's amazing. Well, I think there's no better transition to kind of get to what it is you created. So you start working kind of throughout school, right? You're taking
Mhm.
jobs, you're kind of pursuing your passions in your interests. You're a photographer at the moment. When this all starts to happen, you find this need that relates to pets, right? So then I'll let you kind
Yes.
of carry the story of how that ultimately turned into the Lumen Room.
Yeah, so I was, doing all kinds of photography. Anybody that wanted to book me, I would do it. And I started taking some jobs, for people's pets. It was kind of random, but I was like, "Wait, this is so fun. This is a huge industry.
Mhm.
Nobody is the expert, at least here in Dallas, in, like, pet photography." So I just went
Yeah.
into all of that. I was like, commercial jobs, big pet commercial conglomerates, people's pets, all kinds of things. I just kind of established myself as like, I am the animal photographer here in Dallas. And from there, I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I need my own studio. I need to be able to close the door so that animals can't just run around.
Yeah.
And I need it to be natural light, so that the flash and all the stuff that people generally use in photography doesn't freak out the animals. So I, I found a studio apartment in Fair Park and rented it. And we put in white floors to reflect the light. I mean, we just designed it so that it would be every bit as good as a big commercial studio with tons of gear, but just with a really simple space. So that was
So
kind of
I'm
my,
gonna jump in real quick because
yeah.
could you imagine yourself being that a career in itself? Like that was had enough interest, you had enough clients, kind of
Mhm.
twofold. Could you see that going that way? And then what was it? How did you go sell yourself? That's probably your first time kind of getting into the marketing bug, selling your business. How did that go? How were you finding clients? Let's touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, how did I go about finding clients? I had a good base anyways, from just doing all kinds of photography. So I
Yeah,
started kind of building like people were like, well, I would love one of these shoots of mine. Oh, I love how that looks,
yeah,
sign me up. And then from there, word kind of got out. Instagram was a big thing for me. Like
yeah.
I got reposted on some of the big accounts. And that's
Mhm.
when I remember my like first big moment. There was a company called PetMate. They own
Yeah.
like everything you see at PetSmart. They
Okay.
brought me into a round table and they were like, "We've heard of you. We want you to shoot, you know, all of our brands, what would
Wow.
it look like?" And that was kind of my first moment of like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like we
Yeah.
did it."
So so at that point you're like, this could be it. This could work
Yeah.
really well. This is stable. I have a niche that like
Mhm.
allows me to kind of stand apart from the competition. One question I've always had and thought about for those folks, and like it's hard to scale yourself, right? Like
Yes.
you can only have so much time in the day. You can either work really long or increase your prices. It's kind of only a few routes for you to really scale. How did you think about that? Was that always something in the back of your mind of like, what can I do here? And then being kind of maybe the entrepreneur you didn't know you were at the time was like, did that start giving you some ideas on what's next?
Actually, it did. I kind of thought my big thing was, okay, I have a set of commercial clients. I love doing that. I'll always have these portrait clients where I can slowly kind of like raise prices, make the experience really great. And then I really wanted to do like coffee table books or almost like
Cool.
you can get into like stock photography where you say
Mm.
shoot a bunch of portraits and then list them on all these websites and veterinarian offices, chuck it,
Oh,
whoever, they
wow.
pay per use and you get, there's actually a lot of ways to
So,
scale creatively.
so,
Yeah.
so how did you know about it? Is that like word of mouth through other contacts, or you just kind of you're that type of person where ideas came to you of like, ooh, I could. There's a revenue stream here. There's a revenue stream there.
Yeah, I think so. I think the more I would look into different photography things, I was always on different um like websites like Creative Live or these different things where you hear from experts, listening to podcasts and that kind of thing and saying like, "Oh, she did a coffee table book of, you know, chateaus in France. What if I
Yeah.
did one but I brought in poodles or, that sort
Right.
of
Yeah.
thing."
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So sounds, you're laying out these options for you. You like you said, I've got corporate clients, I've got portrait clients. I know they're stable. What's the next thing you're going to put your energy into? Because if you're going to pick one, it's going to take time and effort, right? I imagine publishing a coffee table book and all that goes into it. There's a ton of unknowns that you're going to have to get into the weeds with, or same with the stock photography. What ultimately led you to do the space and venue avenue that you are now known for?
Yeah, I think at the time I thought, okay, I'll ride off into the sunset and do this pet photography thing. I love it. I'm happy.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then I had to get a surgery where I couldn't work for 2 months. And I was like, oh, I don't want to pay my rent and not be able to use my studio. How annoying. And so I was like, I wonder if people would like help me cover the rent
Mhm.
and use it. And so I went into some Facebook groups, some like photography Facebook groups and said like, "Hey guys, I'm out of my studio for 2 months. I just wanted to post this here. Here's a couple pictures of my space. If you're interested in like using it and helping me cover the rent, just drop your email here. I'll send you some more info." And, closed laptop, went to sleep, woke up and I was like, "Oh my gosh, there's like 150 emails on
Wow.
this like post." I mean, it just started exploding everywhere.
Yeah,
And I realized, oh my gosh, this is like, obviously, this is a need that was kind of unheard of at the time. People
yeah,
didn't,
yeah,
if you rented a studio, it was for a big production. There wasn't like natural light space that you would rent by the hour. And at the time, my husband, who's now my business partner and co-founder, he was in medical device sales, not creative at all. And he was watching me fish through these emails. And he was like, I am working all day to sell a product that nobody
Right.
wants. And you have this product that everybody wants. And so, yeah, I mean, that he took over, and we were a really good match where all
Yeah.
the places where I do not excel, he does, and kind of vice versa. So,
So, I mean, it's really, you guys solved a problem that maybe you didn't know you were solving your own problem at the time, but you
mhm,
ultimately end up solving a problem for other peers of yours that need space. It's one thing to say, I've got 100 emails, this is good, but like, where do you guys go first step? Luckily you had the space already. You knew you weren't going to be using it for a couple months. It's a good test pilot. Talk us through that first 2 months of getting people in, maybe some of the good, the bad, the ugly, and then what ultimately let you guys say, hey, this is a concept. I'm assuming
yeah.
you maybe stopped taking as much photography and you guys are like, let's scale this venue space. I know it's kind of a multi-pronged question, but yeah, tell me about the first 2 months, what you learned, and what kind of decided to let's go chase this full steam.
Yeah, the first 2 months were kind of weird for me because I was off my feet with the surgery. So Xavier, my husband, he was running up and down the steps of this Fair Park loft, letting people in. And I think our big thing is we realized like, okay, there's a need here. And we just started asking, how could we make this better? We said, okay, let's give it a name. We shouldn't name it Grace and Goose's photo studio that you
Yeah.
rent. Like, let's come up
Right.
with a brand. And we just started asking people, hey, what kind of couches would make your job easier? What kind of walls would you like to see in here? We had all kinds of photographers, not just pet photographers coming in.
Yeah.
And so we just started to ask questions. And if somebody said like, gosh, it would be so nice to have a white linen chair in here, we'd order on the spot and they'd walk in and go, oh my gosh, you actually bought it. We tried to kind of bowl people over with service and say like, hey, we're really listening and we want to make this easier for you. We want to serve you. And that just really
So you
worked. I think
guys
it established trust.
were you pretty committed on this being a flex rental space even when you were going to start working again, or were you kind of like, maybe I don't need to do this anymore, or how did you, or was it always like I can always go back to using the space for my own use if this becomes a little too much work?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of like, well, shoot, I only use the studio for
Yeah.
6 hours a
Days and
week,
yeah. Yeah.
or a couple days, or
Okay.
depending on the
Yeah. Okay.
project. Like, this is
Yeah.
a great way to make money in
Yeah.
between. And then, yeah, it just grew from there to where I was like, well, now I can't get into my own studio.
You're ready to
Okay,
tell them.
let's open another one. Let's do a new metro,
Okay. Yeah. So let's get to that. So you start to fill this space out. The feedback is great. You're growing your client base. You guys are mastering the service, polling the clientele of what they need, seeing no one else is doing this. How do you think about expanding, right? You guys are a photographer and a medical device salesperson who's deciding, where's location number two, kind of learning the economics of this, kind of what did that first business plan look like for scaling and the thoughts behind it?
Well, our first we once we were just way too full, we opened a second space in Dallas. That was pretty easy. And then we had a good amount of people driving in from Fort Worth. And so we said,
Wow.
it's time to open Fort Worth. This is scary because we won't be able to just pop in there and clean it. So we're going to have to figure out that piece. But we kind of said, let's just go ahead and do it. We know that if we find a piece of real estate that works, we can do our thing in there and make it a space that's beautiful for photography. Let's go ahead and do it. And so we did, and we started to figure out kind of our business plan along the way of like, okay, we need somebody to clean it. Who should we
Yeah.
get? How are we going to hire them? How do we incentivize them? And we just sort of, again, reacted to like, okay, we see that a lot of people who are willing to do this, they work freelance jobs. If we give them an office as kind of a home base, they'll stick around. Sometimes they work, sometimes we have one event for the whole day. We don't want to pay somebody to sit there all day. And sometimes we have 50 appointments because it's two spaces and everybody's shooting for an hour. So how do you kind of solve that problem? And we started kind of just solving it along the way and kind of coming up with what worked.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, that's a big question I have is how, so we'll, this is 2016, you guys formed the Lumen Room.
Yeah.
How soon after did you open that Fort Worth third location?
Ooh, I think it was 2018, like end of
Okay.
2018. Yeah.
So you had a good 2 year run of kind of really stealing the operations out
Mm-hmm.
and being ready to obviously go into a new city. I know that's, you guys are probably very hands on. Oh man, we're going to drive 30 minutes every day just to, like you say, clean and save a
Yep.
little money there. What was, and I've rented your space before. When did you guys kind of implement the non-person operating it to be able to come in and come out and rent the space? I think you guys, when I did it, you had a key code or some type of special access to get in it, right?
Yeah, we kind of said we need gaps between when people are coming in and out. Otherwise, people overlap and drama.
Messy. Yep.
And we were like, let's just have somebody go in and clean it and then leave. You know, we were like, people who are doing creative stuff, a lot of times they want it to feel like their own space. They don't want to check in with somebody and all this kind of stuff and have
Looking over
somebody
their
listening to
shoulder,
them.
the
Yeah,
clock.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we said, let's just make it like people want it to be their studio. So for this hour or 2 hours that you booked, it is your studio. We will get in before you, make sure everything's wiped down and clean and ready to go, and that everybody from the last reservation is out, and then we'll leave. And then at the end of your reservation, take your stuff and walk out. Somebody will be
Yep.
in 5 minutes after your time is up to go in and do it again for the next client. And
Incredible.
so again, just reacting to what the creative people who were
Yeah.
coming in really wanted.
And so, 9 years later, we're at 18 locations. It became a scaling kind of how many locations is enough versus not enough. How did you guys think about where these locations need to be? Did the demand, a lot changes in a photographer's need, and I'm sure technology in these 9 years. What has remained consistent to where freelance photographers and freelance space has become still such a need that you guys have been able to reach this volume?
Yeah. We actually kept running into these problems trying to expand. Like we did locations in Dallas and Fort Worth where you can find old loft buildings with big windows. But when it
Yeah,
was time to open in Plano, we said, well, there aren't any of
it won't
those.
exist. Yeah,
Yes. And so we had to kind of get creative and say, like, we need to figure out how, no matter what this piece of real estate looks like, we know how to turn it into a Lumen Room. And so we kind of went from an old loft that we just really had to put in our finish out preferences to moving into spaces that were maybe a shell where we said, okay, here's where we're going to knock out windows so that the sun is coming in from, east or west. Here's how far away a wall needs to be. And started, really figuring out the design principles of like what makes this work. And I think,
so how
yeah,
big is the space? What's the footprint of aluminum that you guys need? Are they all different?
they're all a little different. When we started, we were a little bit scrappier. And so anywhere from like 800 to 1500 feet was a single space. We still do those sometimes, but now we try to look for a little bit more space. We try to look for like 4,000 square feet where we can put two spaces, an entry, and like a little storage closet and office so that,
Incredible.
our whoever's working can clean both spaces without having to drive. Like some of those little
Incredible.
things. Yeah.
That's amazing. And how do you guys think about the spread of them? Like, can there be two Lumen rooms within 3 miles from each other? Is it kind of a density thing, or how do you guys think about where locations are workable?
Yeah, I think it depends on we use these maps that kind of show us where are there a lot of people
Uh-huh.
um who are either families or working in creative jobs or some of these things that make up our demographic.
Yeah,
And if
yeah,
we have like higher density, higher income and a lot of those things, we know we can put quite a few. Like in Fort Worth, we have 3 different locations between like Panther Island, Magnolia, all these areas, and Willow Park, a suburb, where we know a city like Fort Worth can handle all of that.
yeah.
Same in Dallas. We've got 3 in Dallas and 1 just up the road in Plano, and we know it can handle it. Whereas maybe in some of our smaller markets, we wouldn't do that.
Yeah, do that many. Yeah, what is the demographic of of your user base? I imagine it's all over the board, right?
It is, especially because we've kind of diversified a little bit in the last couple years where we're kind of half photo shoots and video shoots and half
Mhm.
events.
Oh,
So that's
nice.
open. Yeah. So people throw a lot of like baby showers, small
Yeah.
corporate events, PTA meetings, all that kind of thing. So it's really mixed it up. We get we always have a big base of people doing family shoots, like family
Mm.
photos. And then during the week, a lot of commercial stuff, headshots, product. But now we've also got, you know, Gen Z girls who are throwing a wedding shower for their,
Yeah.
for somebody, or, you know, it's kind of all over. It's a space that's a totally blank space that is going to have great lighting and lots of furniture and props you can use. So it works for pretty much anyone's
And
idea.
and for the events, people just cater in their own food, or is it kind of like what they're gonna do and you provide some of those tools to them, or they, hey, it's your space, you do what you want as long as it meets the parameters of our kind of terms?
Yeah, it's very much DIY at this point. We provide like tables and chairs that we just started doing
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
And we recently just started a partnership with Breadwinners for DFW. So we're kind of just in that process of saying, trying to continue that, like, how do we keep serving? Like, now we've let people throw all these events here. What would make it easier? Having the tables and chairs ready to go, having some ideas of who to bring in for catering. So we're kind of in that process of making those partnerships.
and so for those listening who might own a building or be a space where you guys would want to uh, open up shop, what do you guys look for? Is there, you mentioned, in the early days it was lofts, kind of these cool creative types, but now it sounds like you guys have your own build outs, or kind of be able to be a little bit more flexible. Where's the ideal locations? Who should be calling you guys about potential tenant usage?
Yeah, I would say 90% of our locations are not like prime time real estate right in the mix middle of everything. Because if you're coming in, you're making an appointment to come there.
Uh,
So that said, like some of our most successful spaces have been auto body shops. Kind of what makes it big for us is it's easy for guests to get in and out of, and we can put windows in it. So a lot of places like industrial that have garage doors, that's places we can come in and say, like, we can replace those with glass and bring the light in.
cool.
Yeah.
So really, anyone who's has maybe a unique space that they don't know what to do with it, give you guys a call, and you guys are able to kind of find a good use for it. And then also the end user, those people who are looking for spaces for events and photography. Who are those people? Who do you want to speak to on that end of why they should maybe choose you guys or consider using a Lumen Room as opposed to what they've used in the past?
Yeah, I would say for a photographer, our space makes it so easy for you to just walk right in and not have to think about it. You're going to have beautiful bright light. You're going to have some textures to pull in to make your shoots run smoothly, serve your clients well, make it feel like a nice experience that's
You're
repeatable.
right.
And I would say for people throwing events, um, it's a space that I think the problem that people have a lot of times with events is that if you're booking a traditional event venue, it's usually very big, it's very expensive. A lot of times
Mhm.
they have a lot of rules of who you need to cater, drinks that make the price go up and up, and the vibe may not be what you had in mind. So I think we're a unique space in that if you're throwing an event, you can come into a space that's going to photograph beautifully because it started as a photo studio. It has a great feel because it's been designed so that you walk in and feel the light.
Right.
And you get to say, like, I've had this dream of it being a floral bar, or I want it to be, my kid needs trolls stuff everywhere and balloons and bounce houses. Like, we're the space that you can bring it all into,
I didn't
and
even
we'll help
think
you
about
make
the
it
birthday
happen.
party
Oh
component. That's
yeah,
got to be
you get a lot.
a good avenue. So
Oh yeah.
you've shared so much amazing intel, and appreciate your transparency on how the story is built, and the future is very bright. 18 spaces. I think I read over 11,000 bookings per year across these spaces and the different types. Where do you guys go next? I mean, it sounds like you've evolved into events. you started kind of doing some equipment rental. How do you guys think about the next year, the next 5 years, 10 years? What's kind of what should we look to expect?
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, we're in this kind of spot where we've expanded all over Texas, and we're dipping our toe in some different avenues for how to take it to the next level. We've done
Okay.
we have a couple of franchisees, and we're trying that out. And we've really enjoyed doing that. We've also been talking with people and doing some different kind of real estate partnerships. What does it look like to come in and transform space that people have, that maybe they're less desirable space, and we can make it
Okay.
desirable. We're kind of in that space of trying to figure out which road we take,
Yeah.
to kind of that next level that, as you know, in entrepreneurship, it's there's kind of big steps that keep
Right.
going up and up. And so,
Always. Right. Just
yeah,
when you
we're
think you
just
mastered one thing, the next gap to the next place
like,
is bigger.
yep.
Well, this is awesome. What an amazing journey, and it's only getting started. I can't wait to see what goes next. And those SMU folks listening, I mean, whether you own a building or a space and you're looking for a tenant, it sounds like the Lumen Room is a great candidate. And then those
Thank you.
from all the parents who need a space for their kid, or events or photographers, I mean, the Lumen Room is a great spot for that too. So Hilary, thank you for sharing your
Thank
SMU
you.
story, and we are excited to check back in and see where you guys take it in these next few years.
Well, thank you so much, and thanks for having me.
Talk to you soon. Thank you to our incredible sponsors, Security National Bank, Hilltop Property Tax, Mignon Steakhouse, Sound of a Rose podcast, and the SMU's Cox School of Business for making this all possible.